I'm so proud of this country. I am so proud to be an American. I love this country. I kiss the ground of this country. But it frightens me. It brings tears to my eyes to talk with people like we're talking to now, 22 years old and another teenager here. Bob, how old are you?
17.
17. And Bob is in disguise, by the way, not because he's embarrassed or ashamed of being a racist, but because he's a minor, and on television we have to cover his image. These two young men say they are darn proud of being racist as young as they are. They say that blacks and Jews and anybody of color who is not white needs to get out of their way, because they say America ought to be a white homeland. How in the world did you guys get involved in an organization that would make you so proudly display swastikas that mean death and destruction to so many people in the world?
It was not a choice. It was something that we had to do. This country's turning into a sewer. I don't like this country for what it is today. I can't say that I'm going to have a job as good as my parents and my grandparents had, and any other white person is pretty much in the same boat.
Why?
Because the country's being overrun by immigrants. We've got the mud flood coming across the border from Mexico.
And what's the mud flood? Mexicans? Is that what you call Mexican immigration, mud floods?
Yep.
Okay.
The mud flood is coming across our borders, taking our jobs.
Have you ever met a Mexican person?
Sure. I live in a ghetto.
We have to deal with them every day.
Every day, all night long.
Get harassed, attacked, everywhere we go.
Bob, let me ask you, at 17 years old, what was the day that you decided, you know, I could join a whole bunch of other groups at 17 years old, but you know, for me, I'm going to join a group that doesn't like anybody but white folks. What made you decide, Bob? What was it in your life that made you sign up?
When I was 14, I was going to middle school, and I started noticing all the Jews around me, the blacks around me, how they're getting the special privileges, and I just got sick and tired of it. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to do something for our race before it dies out. It's going to die out soon.
That brings up a very good question. The affirmative action thing. They say that affirmative action was made for the minorities to get the special privileges, special jobs, and all this kind of stuff. All right, well, you look around in New York City. The white people are the vast minority here, as in our area of where we live in St. Paul. And why is there still affirmative action? It's a big joke. It's to spit on the white race. That's
so why don't you do something constructive, like learning to vote and being part of a government movement to bring up another voice as opposed to hating people?
We're part of a government movement. We're for a new government, National Socialist government.
Not my government. Not my government. Let me tell you, earlier in the show, we met Johnny Lee Clary, who's a former imperial wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. He says he's changed his ways, he's no longer a racist, and he believes he can take the two of you and turn your lives around, get rid of this racist attitude. Do you believe that he can do that?
Hell no.
No way.
Wait a minute, who's this man down here in the hood saying, heck no? You don't like him either. He said he was a traitor to the white race. Is that what you think too? Come on, stand up. What's your name?
William Nathan McKinney.
Mm-hmm. What's your name?
William Nathan McKinney.
Okay, and you represent what group?
Rebels Knights of the Ku Klux Klan.
The Ku Klux Klan.
Yes, ma'am.
And sir, you don't believe that Jimmy could change somebody like you?
Hell no.
Mm-hmm. Are you? I guess you're proud to see young people like this.
Yes, ma'am. I sure am.
Why?
Because I was born in the white race, I'll die in the white race, and that's the way it is.
And I love you because you're just a good person, maybe, and it doesn't have anything to do with you being white. So why can't you give that back to me?
Because, I tell you, everybody should stick with their own kind. Black should stick with black. White should stick with white.
I can't tell you how many good friends I wouldn't have if I took your advice.
Yeah, but what you gonna do with them little nigglets running right here like
no. Now listen, one of the things I'm real proud of myself of is that no matter what you throw at me, I'm still gonna love you. There's nothing you can do to me to make me hate you. Nothing. I love you, sir. I love you, sir. And all I ask is that you respect people because we're in people's homes now.
I don't hate you.
Okay, but don't say words that would degrade the people I come from, okay?
The point is, I don't hate black. Mm-hmm. The point is, they should stay with their own kind.
The psychology, consciousness, and behavioral tendencies of individuals and societies are to a very significant extent the product of their personal and collective histories. Both personal and collective psychology are constructed from those experiences which can be consciously retrieved from memory, as well as those experiences which have been forgotten or repressed, but which still represent themselves in individual and collective habits, tendencies, traditions, emotional responsitives, perspectives, ways of processing information, attitudes, and reflex-like reactions to certain stimuli and situations. Both types of experiences interacting with current perceptions are utilized by individuals and groups to achieve certain material and non-material ends. The psychology of individuals and groups may also in part be constructed from historical and experimental amnesia. That is, when an individual or a group is compelled by various circumstances to repress important segments of his or its formative history, he or it at the same time loses access to critically important social, intellectual, and technical skills associated with that history, which could be used to resolve current problems. Consequently, to some lesser or greater degree, the individual or group may be handicapped or disadvantaged by the resulting amnesia. Finally, individual and group psychology are in part constructed from the perception he or it has of his or its history, the inferences drawn from that history about the kind of person or group he or it may be, what other persons or groups think of him or it, and the destiny that awaits him or it. The character of individual and collective consciousness and the range of their behavioral possibilities are very significantly influenced by the quality of their recordings and recollections of their historical experiences. To manipulate history is to manipulate consciousness. To manipulate consciousness is to manipulate possibilities. And to manipulate possibilities is to manipulate power. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Happy Monday. Welcome back to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward, and I am beginning my reading of Dr. Amos Wilson's The Falsification of African Consciousness, Eurocentric History, Psychiatry, and the Politics of White Supremacy. And I'm actually starting with reading the introduction. I usually, for the most part, don't read the introduction, but after reading this introduction, the information was kind of capturing me, it was grabbing me. So I wanted to make sure I start with this introduction. And then the next video, we're going to start with chapter 1. But getting into the introduction of what Dr. Wilson is talking about and tying it to the video, because we're talking about like I said, the psychology, the consciousness, and behavioral tendencies of individuals and societies are to a very extent the products of their personal and collective histories. Now, what does that mean for us here in today in 2024 in America in 2024? We are where we are as Black people in America. We are where we are because of the collective history and the collective consciousness that we've developed, the history that we've lived, and the consciousness that we've developed since being brought here in America, versus the history and the consciousness of white people or even white supremacists. Why are we in the position that we're in versus why are the white supremacists in the position that they're in, right? Because if we're talking about consciousness, what is the state of consciousness of Black people in America versus the state of consciousness to white people in America? And now in 2024, we can't even just say just white people. What's the state of consciousness of the Asian group? What's the state of consciousness of the Hispanics? What is the state of consciousness of all non-Black groups of people? Because these people are our competition, whether we want them to be or not. They are our competition. So what is the state of consciousness of us in relation to our competition? Yes, America is supposed to be a melting pot, but it's not. You see in the video, those gentlemen representing the KKK, those gentlemen representing these neo-racist groups who are continuing the legacy of racism and white supremacy. In order for white supremacy to continue, people have to be willing to uphold the principles and the ideologies of white supremacy, right? White supremacy cannot continue if a group of white people say, you know what, we're not going to continue white supremacy. But there's enough white people who understand their benefits, who understand the benefit for them of having white supremacy to continue to dominate, especially black people, but all non-white people in the West and in the world. So you saw the men in the video, basically, especially the older black men, talking about staying with your own kind. I thought it was interesting and fruitless the way Rolando was trying to appeal to his moral sensibilities, right? Appeal to his morals. Hey, I love you no matter how racist you are. And in my mind, I'm like, that's idiotic. That's very idiotic to try to love the racism out of somebody. That's not going to happen. They had the guy backstage, Jimmy Lee, I guess that was his name, the guy backstage, and that's supposed to be her example of how to come out of the racist space, her not really understanding that white supremacy, racism still exists today because there's a necessity for white people to have it. They don't want to give up their position. They will not give up their position. Like we talked about in the last week's video with Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, over their dead bodies. It's an over their dead bodies mentality that we're dealing with white supremacists, right? And so Dr. Wilson, toward the end of this, he says, I passed it. Where am I? Okay. He says, to manipulate history is to manipulate consciousness. First of all, in order for you to manipulate history, you have to have power to manipulate the history of another group of people. If I'm a stronger group or equal group to you, I will not allow you to manipulate my history because I will be telling my history. To manipulate consciousness is to manipulate possibilities. So they're going to tell their version of our history. And then they're going to implant a consciousness of programming in us, i.e. the Negro mindset, implant a consciousness in us that will be counterproductive to us becoming a powerful group of people. And to manipulate to manipulate consciousness is to manipulate possibilities, right? So look at the degradation that continues to come out of us who have the Negro mindset, they harbor and push the Negro mindset and pass it down. Look at the degradation. Look at how much progress is not made. Right? And then he says to manipulate possibilities is to manipulate power. I am taking your power away from you. You do have power, but I'm manipulating your consciousness, your possibilities, and everything else. So you don't even understand your power. You believe that you're a minority. You believe that you have to continue to be oppressed. You believe that you have to continue to be on the bottom. You believe that you have to fail. You believe that you have to go work in the white man's world to be successful. You believe that you have to code switch to be successful. You believe all of the negative tropes and the negative ideas and ideologies and all the sayings. You believe them. We brought into them. We brought them to them. We believe them down to our core being. We believe in 2024 that we are supposed to be on the bottom. We believe that we are the helpmeet for white supremacists. We believe that the Democrats are the ones who are supposed to save us from the racists. We believe that the Republicans are going to save us from the Democrats. We believe in everything except ourselves, which is by design. It's by design for us to believe in everything except ourselves. That's how you keep a group of people on the bottom. Make them believe that they are nothing, that they are inferior, and make them believe that they need their oppressors to survive. Make them believe that. and you will never have to worry about them being a threat. So let's jump back into this reading. This is the second page of the introduction. So the paragraph that starts with "Herein lies." Remember to hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share this video. Make sure as many people can see this video as possible. We want to make sure we get Dr. Amos Wilson and all of our authors' information out. Share these book reviews, share them all. Hit that like button. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So herein lies the moral threat of Eurocentric historiography to African existence. For what must be the form and the function of African consciousness and behavior if they are derivative of an African history written by their oppressor? The history of the oppressed, as written by their oppressors, shaped the consciousness and psychology of both oppressed and oppressor. I'm going to read that again. The history of the oppressed, as written by the oppressors, shaped the consciousness and psychology of both the oppressed and the oppressor. It helps to legitimate the oppressive system and to maintain the imbalance of power in favor of the oppressor. Eurocentric history writing is essentially an exercise in publishing apologetics for the European oppression of African peoples. Often a gross and crude attempt to create and shape a subordinate and inferior African consciousness and psychology, right? It seeks to impose a social, historical, and cultural amnestic tax on the heads of African people and thereby rob them of their most valuable resources, their knowledge of truth and reality of self, their cultural heritage and identity, minds, bodies, and souls, their wealth, land, products, and their labor and lives. Forget what we did to you. Forget all that stuff that we did to y'all. Forget us taking everything from you and accept these crumbs. Accept these white American crumbs that's going to make you feel better about being on the bottom. Because we taking everything from you because we must dominate you. We must dominate you. We understand that's what human beings do, but we must be the greatest at dominating people in the world. And you are the people that we see, you black people are the people that we see as the greatest threat. So we are going to dominate you to the fullest extent. And we will die before we give up our position. Do you understand that? We will die before we give up our position. So stop trying to love the racism out of white people. Stop trying to love and manipulate and moralize the racism out of white supremacists. It is a cultural and religious practice for them. It is how they exist. It determines everything about them. It is why they do what they do. So the question is for us is, when are we going to wake up and do something different about how we oppose it? I showed that clip because the clip was a perfect example of what Dr. Amos Wilson is talking about people's consciousness being shaped by the oppression. On one end, the white men are like, we have to maintain our power. You Negroes are trying to take this from us. We have a fear of genetic annihilation and the fear of loss, the fear of scarcity, the fear of people taking our stuff. And on the other end, you have the black woman saying, hey, I'm going to love you regardless. I need you to be my brethren. I'm going to be your brother. And we got to love each other because America, she said she loves the ground. Love this American soil, love the ground. She kissed the ground Americans walk on. She's fully indoctrinated into this Negro mindset, this all-American mindset. She's fully indoctrinated to it. To become successful, I have to fully assimilate mind, body, and soul into white consciousness, into white America, into the white system, because this is what's going to make me feel like I am somebody and I did something and I am successful. White people love me. The white supremacists love me, so I am successful. It shaped everything about us, taking over our minds, bodies, and our souls. The way we think, the actions we go about having, and even who we pray and how we pray, and what we believe. white supremacy has literally shaped our image of God. It has reshaped our image of God. It's given us back something whitewashed image of God. That's what it's done to us. Eurocentric historiography is the most formidable ally of white racism and imperialism. Its treacherous role in this regard must be explored and reversed by an African-centered historiography written by African historians dedicated to historical accuracy and truth. Historians who are unafraid to speak truth to power. Yes, that is what we need. That is what we need. And so to be able to write our own history of what actually happened and continue to write our own history of what is actually happening, that is going to help shape the minds of future African people, future Black people, of the future of the African diaspora. Because we must ask ourselves, what is the future of the African diaspora if we continue to behave the way we are behaving now? What is the future of the African diaspora? What is the future of the Black American? Where will Black American people be in 50 years? What will be the state of Black America in 50 years if we're continuing with the mindsets that we have that are given to us by our oppressors? What will be the state of Black American people? We talked about the survival units with Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Check those videos out on Tuesday. Talked about the survival unit. Well, we in the past we talked about the individual mindsets when we were reading Dr. Amos Wilson last time. The individual mindsets. Group power individual power comes from group power. So if you're an individual Black person and your idea of power comes from your oppressor, that lets you know you have none. The clarion call for the writing of a restorative African-centered historiography, a critical undertaking, is a call for the healing of the wounds of African peoples, for the African unity, for the freeing and expansion of African consciousness, for the reconquest of African minds, bodies, lands, resources, and African autonomy. Nobody gonna give it to us. Nobody wants to give it to us. Nobody has to give it to us. It's not a necessity for anybody to give us our freedom, to give us our autonomy, to give us our place in history. It's not advantageous for any other group to do that. We must wake up and understand the real world that we live in. This is not the fairy tale worlds that was taught to us when we were growing up. People conquer people. If you don't want to be conquered, you got to get your stuff together as a people. Every Eurocentric social institution conspires with Eurocentric historiography to handcuff and incarcerate African consciousness, to justify and facilitate the subordination and exploitation of African peoples. One such institution is the Eurocentric mental health establishment. Oh, man. Oh, man, let's get into it. A product and functionary of European imperialism, this establishment promulgates explanatory systems, diagnostic techniques, labeling, and treatment regimes which obscure the true origins of African mental diseases and maladaptiveness, the effects and after effects of white supremacy. By these means, this establishment makes its most important contribution, along with Eurocentric historiography, to the falsification and misdirection of African consciousness and behavior. In the context of a racist social system, psychological diagnosis, labeling, and treatment of the behavior of potentially oppressed persons are political acts performed to attain political ends. For oppression begins as a psychological fact and is in good part a psychological state. If oppression is to operate with maximum efficiency, it must become and maintain a psychological condition, achieving self-perpetuating motion by its own internal dynamics and by its own internal momentum. That Negro mindset. Teach them to destroy themselves. Give them incentives to destroy themselves, and they will continue to destroy themselves. Even Carter G. Woodson talked about it in The Miseducation of the Negro, about that mindset. After a while, you won't have to tell us to go to the back door. We're going to go to the back door automatically. Why? Because we've learned our place. We've been conditioned, just like dogs. We've been trained, just like they do dogs. We've been trained to know our place. Get in line, boy. Get in line, girl. Know your place. And if you don't know your place, we're going to teach you to where your place is. We're going to teach you to know your place if you don't know your place, right? Know your place. That's the whole purpose of the conditioning. So we can always know our place. And groups like the KKK, the neo-Nazi, and all these other racist groups are designed to keep us in our place. The psychology of a white supremacist is all about preservation at this point. Preservation, the preservation of white supremacy. Can't say it enough. We will, or they will go to any length, to keep it going. Any length. You see in the video, they have teenagers. Yes, indoctrinate them early. Well, what are we doing with our teenagers? Our teenagers twerking. Our teenagers trying to be rappers and social media influencers. We are still literally at war. The white supremacists, no matter of fact, let me restate that. The white supremacists are at war against us. We're zombies. We have no idea what's going on around us. But we know we don't like it. We know it hurt. We know it's uncomfortable. But we have no idea what's going on around us. But, you know, it's all good because we're going to love the racism. We're going to do like Rolanda say and love the racism out of the white supremacists. The Eurocentric mental health establishment, a beneficiary of the white domination of African peoples, is a very important cog in this self-perpetuating machine. Its reasons for being is to nurture and sanction the imperialist and racist regime which fathered it. Thus, its explanatory system and its treatment approaches ultimately must be exposed as political ideology and oppressive political governance, parading as empirically validated principles of psychological and medical science and as objective psychotherapeutic and psychiatric practices. The Eurocentric mental health establishment consequently cannot provide adequate explanations, rationales, preventative and remedial practices for African peoples whose psychology is derivative of a singularly unique history and cultural experience and of a necessarily revolutionary drive to achieve liberation from subordination. They cannot help us. They can only further fracture us. They can only further hurt us. They've not taken the time to fully understand what has actually happened to Black people. The white mental health establishment is more so designed to help to curb and remedy white mental health issues. Now, we've adopted those maladaptiveness, those maladaptive behaviors. We've adopted those maladaptive behaviors being behind enemy lines in this white European centric, this white Eurocentric white supremacist system. We've adapted those mental health issues. But it's still a deeper history that goes in adopting those behaviors. We've adopted those behaviors in conjunction with everything else that has already happened to us. We're talking about the epigenetic history. We talk about the psychological history. We talk about the mental history. We talk about the emotional history. Emotional abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, spiritual abuse, sexual abuse. All of those different types of abuse have happened to Black people for hundreds of years with no remedy in it, no remedy in it at all. And then the white establishment comes along and they're going to diagnose us. They're going to properly diagnose us and tell us what's wrong. I tell you what's wrong. The existence and the system of white supremacy. Now, does that mean that eliminates all mental health issues? No. But we don't know a world. We don't know a world where mental health issues exist absent of white supremacy. We don't know that world. Now, we can go back and look at historical documents that talk about mental health issues in other cultures and stuff, but have we really studied mental health or mental health issues in African people prior to European contact? And if we haven't, I know I haven't. And that's why I'm saying it, because I'm saying it like that so I can remember. This is something I need to go really look up. We need to look up the mental health issues and the mental health conditions of African people prior to European contact. Because I'm sure mental health issues existed, but I would doubt that mental health issues exist to this extent. Eurocentric historiography, the biasing and falsification of history in ways which justify white supremacy. I'm going to say that again. Eurocentric historiography, the biasing and falsification of history in ways which justify white supremacy, is not merely the fiddle-faddle of absent-minded professors encased in academic ivory towers. It involves a deliberate and serious exercise in myth-making and the development of Eurocentric cultural mythic thought, which rationalizes a concrete social order founded on the perpetual subordination of African peoples to European peoples. Moreover, the Eurocentric social order, which the European historiographic and behavioral science establishments legitimate and support, is essentially a social machine which manufactures a consciousness and behavior orientation in African people designed to serve the purposes of white supremacy. And so he's further going on to say, in this volume, we begin an exploration of the working mechanisms of the machine and the means by which it is to be dismantled. We need to understand what we're trying to dismantle, right? The healing of the collective African body, mind, and spirit, the expansion of African consciousness, calls for the accelerated advancement of African-centered historiographic, social, and natural sciences, the development of incisive critical disciplines, which can make decisive contributions to the establishment of a new world social order in which all humanity are free of oppression and degradation. It is our hope that the two lectures in the apprehended essay included herein make a positive contribution to this end. Learning what has really happened to us. I know we talk about it a lot. We talk about it a lot on this channel. We just talk about it a lot within African-centered circles, but in Black circles, we talk about learning about what really happened to us. And a lot of us really believe we know. I'm a historian and I'm still learning about what really happened to us. Like on a real, not just a level of a historical level. Because we're not just talking about what happened to African people on a historical level. What happened to African people on a physical level, on a psychological level, on a spiritual level, on a emotional level, on a mental level. Our consciousness is deranged. Our consciousness is unproductive. The consciousness that we possess is counterproductive to our advancement. The consciousness that we have was given to us by our oppressors for a specific reason. And we're going to take the time in these readings and these reviews to understand as best we can what has happened to us so we can change what has happened to us and become powerful people within America, within this world. The African diaspora needs to be empowered. And until the African diaspora is empowered, African people as a whole will be on the bottom. Until Black Americans empower ourselves, codify ourselves, unify ourselves, and move as one, Black Americans are it's going to get worse for us because they're importing immigrants to replace us. How you like them apples? Get your stuff together or get gone. That's the rallying cry for us. Get your stuff together or get gone. So that is the introduction of the falsification of African consciousness by Dr. Amos Wilson. So get your copies, read the introduction so you can be caught up on what we got going on. The falsification of African consciousness, Eurocentric history, psychiatry, and politics of white supremacy. So, hey, I think this is going to be amazing, an amazing read. I can tell already just by the introduction and how excited I am about this. So short video, but impactful video with a lot of information, hard hitting. Dr. Amos Wilson. This is how we're starting, and it's going to go great from this. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Hey, I love you all, and I appreciate all the support that everybody's giving me. And let's continue this thing. Let's run these numbers up. Let's make sure our people have our information from our master teachers. And let's not just collect this information, but let's further this information. Joseph Ward, I'll catch y'all next.